Hey, Shalom, Shalom, on the set of souls, but giving no praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushua, Bashem, Kakadash. The belongings the apostles of great Most and honesty, brothers doing the work of the Most High, and truth, and in sincerity. Yahweh, his real name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, or Yahweh, his real name is Yahweh, and the Son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bah meaning in, Her meaning then, Sham meaning name, so Yahweh, the name of Yahweh Shai is been something that's been on my mind, spirit, on me to do, which got a video on it, and it is basically just how like you have, you've got the beast, right? You've got the 7 heads and 10 horns. Right, so let's get into that. Right, this is Revelation 13:1. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his name the names of blasphemy." Right. So as it stood up on the sand of the sea on the Isle of Patmos, the sea, Mediterranean Sea, represents peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. Revelation 17:15. But then you got the 7 heads, right, which is represents 7 kingdoms: Germania Major, Germania Minor, Italy, Greece, France, Britain, and Britain, right? And where the 10 horns represent the common market, or the European Economic Community, right, EEC, or now the EU, right, established right in 1958, right? And then that was originally Belgium, Denmark, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Greece, Spain, Portugal, England and Ireland, West Germany, right? Same as the 10 toes spoken of in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, right? Now, this is very much representative of the, of Esau's power structure, right? And what you're seeing is in Esau's power structure, you're seeing the divisions and the cracks coming up, right? So on one hand, you've got NATO, right? And in that, you've got a partner, which is Turkey. Now, Turkey, right? Turkey is one of the countries that this prophecy says that Russia is going to protect. So it says, let's get into it. It's Ezekiel the 38th chapter from the top. It says, "And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog," right? Which Lucy, that's not Lucy, but when you look at it on a map, that's roughly where Russia is, would you call it today, right? So the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, right? And prophesy against him, right? And say, "Thus saith the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal," right? Because although the Lord is using the Russians, guess what? The Lord is against the Russians, right? And it's actually just using him, using these different powers. So I'm googling to typing and putting into the word search, using the what you call it, these different kings to fulfill the Lord's agenda. This is Proverbs 21:1. Says, "The king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh, right? As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." All right. So going back here, right? So where were we? We're here, right? So here verse says back in Ezekiel 30:3, right? So the Lord is just using these Russians, right, to fulfill a purpose. It says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaw, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." I see when he put hooks in, put hooks into thy jaw. The Lord will put the fighting spirit back into the Russians so that they fight against America, right? And I forgot whether it's further down or whether it's in Ezekiel 39, but we'll find it in Secular as well. But we carry on, verse 5 says, "Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands," right? And that's today's modern day Turkey, right? It says, "The house of Togama of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee," right? "Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that assembled unto them, and be thou a guard unto them." So what this is saying is that the Lord is going to put the spirit on these Russians to protect these other nations, right? Be a guard unto them. Now, you've seen that with the S-300, S-400, S-500 cells, right? That, for instance, Russia has made to say Turkey, right? So the very fact that Turkey is a NATO member, but is going to actually be protected by, be protected by Russia. That's basically showing you, the Lord's handiwork right there, right? Let me find it. Yeah, verse 10. Literally just there. It says, "Thus saith the Lord," Ezekiel 38 and 10, "Thus saith the Lord power, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought." All right, so the Lord will put it in the mind of the Russians to attack America. All right, so the Lord's the one that's going to put it in the minds of these Russians. Why? Because ultimately the Lord's against them, because the Russians are Edomites anyway, right? So we read that, so we go back here. Right, it says Turkey's Erdogan sets conditions for Finland, Sweden's, and NATO bids. Right, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Saturday said Turkey would not look positively on Sweden and Finland's NATO bids unless its terror-related concerns were addressed. So basically, what Turkey is doing there is, they're trying to, find a way of basically getting what they want out of this deal, right? Says Turkey has long accused Nordic countries, in particular Sweden, which has a strong Turkish immigrant community, of harboring outlawed Kurdish militants, right, as well as supporters of Fethullah Gulen, the US-based preacher wanted over the failed 2016 coup, right? Says Erdogan's threats throws a major potential obstacle in the way of membership for the hitherto military non-aligned Nordic nations, since a consensus is required in NATO decisions. Yeah, they all have to agree, just like on the Security Council, right? All of the Security Council members have to agree, right? At least I believe that's the case. Anyway, you can fact check that, right? But then even when I was trying to put this all together, where I saw one, which I'm trying to find now. It was all still there. Oh, that's annoying. Oh yeah, there you go. National Review, you see that it's time to boot Turkey from NATO, right? So they're basically would you call it, this is basically showing you that, how these things change, and ultimately how everything could just collapse. Because what you're seeing, even you had that with the Brexit, right, is this man's a system being fractured, right? So that's all I wanted on those 2 points. But then the next thing, right, as well, is on the front. So that's the NATO front, but then you got the EU front, right? And on the EU front, you have this particular one, right? It says EU drafts plan to send cash to Hungary if Orban agrees to Russian oil ban, right? Brussels could pay Budapest to move away from Russian fuels as the impasse over sanctions deepens. EU officials are considering offering financial compensation. Securing Hungary support for the plan to block all EU imports of crude and refined oil from Russia is essential to maintaining the political objective of strong and united European opposition to Putin's actions. But Orban has so far blocked EU-wide sanctions on Russian oil since they were proposed on May 4th, arguing that ending imports would be like dropping a nuclear bomb on Hungary's economy. Right, and that's effectively what it's doing. Because when you look at it now, you have what is this? You have the rubles, like the best performing currency right now. Right, it's now even cheaper than way before. I think you have to go back a few years for the ruble to be this strong. Right. So yeah, that's it. And me personally speaking as a man, when I see this particular thing, I'm pretty sure there are certain countries that are just, they ain't pushing Hungary, right? Too tough, because actually they don't want to put the sanction on, right? And that's that hatred that's gonna come, come against America, right? Because all of these sanctions are hurting everyone in the EU one way or another, right? But guess what? They've got to show a united front, right? So if you've got, an outlier like Hungary, pretending like, not pretending, but they could be using Hungary as a country where they can be like, oh yeah, look, we don't we can't put these sanctions on because of Hungary, but deep down that country, maybe even Germany or whatever, maybe actually with Hungary's position, right? But then they don't want to piss off America. But that's, one of the reasons why you go and see. That's what the scripture says, these shall hate the whore, because these different, America's messing around, right, with all of these different EU, different nations' money, right? This is Daniel 2:40, says, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but they shall be in it the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Right? So, and that's exactly what you're seeing right now. You're having, you're having the 10 toes, the EEC, right? You had the EU, you had the Brexit. Right now, you've got these different, positions, different opinions, right? How are we gonna do it? How are we not gonna do it? All of these different things, right? All of these different divisions, which is showing the EU, right, to be weak. And even in that, you've got certain of those nations that are strong. You've got your Germanys, right, your Frances, right? But then you've got your pigs, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, right? But then also, once again, you look at the NATO front, which, you got in the NATO front, right? You have, your what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's just divided as we were just going into there, right? This is Matthew 12:25, says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? Right? So what Yahushua is saying here is like, look, man, you have to, a kingdom must be united. And in the kingdom of Israel, right, we're going to be united, right? We're going to have, one thought, right? You're going to be, one in the mind, right? One with Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, right? We ain't going, there ain't going to be any isms and schisms. Whereas that's what you're seeing in Esau's kingdom. You're seeing all the isms and you're seeing all the schisms. Right? You're seeing how basically now this kingdom is effectively getting ready to be shut down, right? So yeah, as always what I was edifying. Till next time we say Shalom.